Thank you all for being here. Thanks to Film for Transparency and the IACC for inviting us. I'm the director of State of Silence, the documentary that we're about to see, and with me it's also Jesus Medina, a journalist from Mexico. We're very happy to have made the trip all the way here and talk with you about this violence crisis that Mexico has been living for many years in terms of freedom of press. And we invite you all to stay at the end of the screening so we can talk more about this subject and the particularities of Mexico, but also on how this is a global issue that I think affects us all and it's important to address. Thank you.
I've covered stuff in the past that people told me I should be concerned about.
We're talking thousands and thousands.
Every century is characterized by a key commodity.
And food is a very obvious and central way to wield power.
I thought maybe there might be more to it than that. Turns out there was.
Place offshore, prostitution, paradis fiscaux, trafic de drogue, gestionnaire de fortune, pillage des ressources naturelles. Dans leur quête incessante de nouveaux marchés, les mafieux s'invitent dans les cercles de pouvoir avec un impératif.
Somos esas personas extrañas que mientras toda la gente va corriendo para huir, pues nosotros vamos directo a ver qué está pasando.
Hacíamos la denuncia con las imágenes y lo que escribíamos.
Se encontró el cuerpo sin vida del periodista.
Al matar a un periodista se mata el derecho de la sociedad a estar informada. Hay que decirlo una y otra vez.
Qué triste que lleguemos a este punto, que no podamos hacer nuestra chamba.
Está imponiendo lo que ha llamado zonas silenciadas.
There's been one rule for the elite, especially the elite that's connected to power, and another for everybody else.
Accounts were opened in the name of these low-level, low-wage employees who do not come into the text. Money used to be deposited in those accounts, and finally they used to land in the accounts of either Mr. Hamza Shehbaz Sharif, Mr. Sulaiman Shehbaz Sharif, or Mr. Shehbaz Sharif himself.
The world needs to wake up.
Проголосуют Беларусь. У нас Конституция не под женщин.
The man I love was trying to topple a dictator, and then he went to jail for it. So I did what any loyal wife would do. I ran in his place.
Okay, well, thank you very much for staying. I know we're competing with a party that is about to start, so we really appreciate that you care and that you're staying now. And thank you very much. We have here Santiago Maza-Stern, the director, and of course you recognize now Jesus from the documentary, one of the journalists. And well, thank you very much for all what you do and your work and being here with us this evening. Well, I'm Emilia Diaz-Struck. I'm the executive director of the Global Investigative Journalism Network, and Andrea kindly, also from GIJAN, is here to help us with the translation for Jesus, who will be speaking in Spanish. Before we start, I would like briefly, raise your hand if you're a journalist. Okay, raise your hand if you're a government official. Okay, raise your hand if you're part of the nonprofit world or activist. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for caring, because this is not a problem only of journalists. This is a problem of society, and that's what I think we can see from the documentary. If journalists can't tell their stories, then society suffers, because we can't take the proper decisions, we can't be informed about the problems and the wrongdoing that is happening, and decision makers can change policies that affect citizens. So this documentary touches a problem that is directly connected to violence, and in a country where violence is part of citizens' daily life. So, and we see people who have died as a result of organized crime, and among those people we have journalists. So why did you decide to start a documentary on a topic that, of course, you're talking about? Since at the end, we saw since the year 2000, over 160 journalists have been killed. 99% of those crimes remain impune. Like, no one is behind a bar because those journalists have been killed. But besides those, we have hundreds of thousands of people, citizens, who have been victims of organized crime. So why did you decide to focus on journalists? And you had to pick a couple of characters to lead your documentary. So how did you pick that? And what was the behind the scenes on deciding, let's do a documentary about the deaths of journalists, but also the journalists who are fighting and who are still telling those stories in zones where silence is kind of the, sometimes the main character, and these journalists are fighting silence.
Yes, well, thank you all for being here. This project, we wanted to speak about journalists because, as you say, the violence and the insecurity affects everyone in Mexico, but journalists in particular are a group that if you run out of that resource, then everything, the situation is worsened when you lack the figure of the journalist. So it's something that, as Mexicans or as global citizens, we should all be very much aware of the role they play in standing between us and those threats against democracy, against the value of information and being informed in everyday life, and at the same time, it's a group that's being hit in particular, especially in the last administration. The president was neglectful in denying the problem. For 6 years, he only denied the problem, and that, in the end, is it's a big cause for the violence to remain as it is, or worse. So it was about recognizing the problem. It was about reminding ourselves in the era of information that we read what other humans are sharing with us because they care, because they expose themselves to go and learn about what's happening in their communities, and that information doesn't happen by itself. You know, like there are people with stories with their families that take those risks, and we should care for them, and we shouldn't forget that, especially in a country in a situation as Mexico, where violence is spread as a cancer. Without journalists, Mexico would collapse.
Thank you, Santiago. And Jesus, you appeared like the beginning of the documentary, and basically you were in the process of like being part of that documentary. Like, what risks did you take, and at the same time, why did you decide to be part of the documentary and then tell your story?
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Jesús Medina. Muchas gracias por estar aquí, por presenciar la película. Principalmente el enlace entre la producción, Santiago y yo, fue Jan Albert Hudson, quien es el titular de la oficina del CPJ en México.
So he says, good evening, thank you so much for being here. And he learned about the documentary from CPJ, from Jan Albert, who appears also in the documentary, and he connected him with Santiago.
Jan Albert es uno de los grandes aliados que tenemos los periodistas en México, porque ha empatizado mucho. Él también anda como nosotros, a pie tierra le decimos, y él nos brindó la confianza, al menos a mí me brindó la confianza para poder dar mi testimonio, a pesar de los riesgos que esto conlleva.
So he says that Jan Albert, he's Dutch and he lives in Mexico, and he empathizes a lot with journalists like him who are, you know, in the communities. He goes with them. So he really cared about the cause, and that's why he wanted to support for his story.
Right, and in the documentary we see like the storyline of like some people were like they go through the mechanism, for example, and then they get some protection, then they decide to go back, and then you have families, like a journalist family, where like basically it's split up, and that is happening while you're filming, no? So how did you basically handled those situations? How, like, as you were filming and like they were taking decisions on their own lives, and also how did you consider any risks while working with all the different journalists and documenting their lives and their experiences and living threats, and also seeing other colleagues who, while you were filming, sometimes they saw other colleagues actually dying too?
Yeah, well, this situation is happening, as you say, as we speak, as we kept on filming. So quite sadly, the documentary only became more necessary as we were doing it. So that was like a big drive for us, no? And that's why, I mean, if they kept doing what they do and they were as resilient as they are, I think that for us as filmmakers, we felt a responsibility of being at that level, no, of commitment, of doing what was on our hands and on our capacity, and we especially with the four main characters, we were also very open from day one and still today. Like if they at some point they want to quit, if they felt this was too risky, they watched the film before anyone else and said, like, "Are you okay with if this is going to be the final piece?" And I think that they approved what we were doing, and we tried to offer psycho-emotional help with professionals for anyone that was interested in accepting it, and just to try to start putting into practice what they already know they need, and what I think as society and organizations we should at least provide, no, if the situation is going to be this one. And for us, in terms of security, we learned a lot from them, you know, like being monitored the whole time of we're going to shoot here, we're going to shoot there, letting know our office in Mexico City when we were in faraway places. Obviously, these were hot areas of the country where we were shooting, so it was important to keep a certain level of security measures. And also, I mean, on a personal level, for me, being with them was, I felt safe, you know, because as Jesus says in the story, like through these threats that they've lived, now they have like a really keen sense of when things can happen. And so you want to stay close to the person that knows that, no? So, and luckily, despite the risks that we faced, everything went well. And now, during the shooting, no? Now that the feature is coming out, we still need to reassess the security for us. But Mexico is a centralized country, and in that sense, Mexico City is way more safe than other areas. And so, yeah, I mean, for the team and everyone, but especially for them that are still living in the communities where these stories are going to come out, and those people are going to hear about the story coming out. So we're still looking for ways and partners to keeping them safe.
And like so far, like I understand, like it just came, like was it last week or when did you? Last week it started. So has there been any reaction already to the documentary, or so far is like starting to kind of raise awareness about like what's going on with the documentary, and I don't know, like has there been any answer?
Well, exactly. Like we just had a world premiere a week ago at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York. Then part of the team, Jesus included, went to Sheffield to present it in Europe. Others went to Guadalajara to present it in Mexico. So we had like a very intense week of sharing the story. And naturally in Mexico, a lot of news outlets were sharing this. Which is very exciting, but we also have like a plan of still like raising more funds because we have an impact campaign that we want to do, and part of that impact campaign is making sure that this is seen by Claudia Sheinbaum, Mexico's next president, so that she takes a position because and hopefully a different one from the previous administration. Because from there, we want the documentary to give a real tool and resource for the journalist workforce by having the highest position in government say something about it. Because from there, we hope that the organizations, the journalists, and hopefully a call to action to the citizenship, so that we all raise awareness and start changing this.
Yeah, you were like, and we can see in the documentary there are criticisms, like I said, like there is a mechanism, and well, you actually benefited from the mechanism at some point, and you had to return. Some of the journalists say the mechanism is failing. You're talking about, well, talking or like getting the documentary like in the view of also government officials. What do you expect, what kind of conversation are you expecting as a result of this documentary? And I understand that you also lead an organization of journalists who have been displaced. So is there, and what are the things that are failing and that you expect to like bring to the table, and do you think what could help change the situation for journalists in Mexico?
El principal problema en México es que no se está hablando de las consecuencias de las agresiones a los periodistas.
The most important challenge in Mexico is that we're not talking about the consequences that journalists are facing.
Y algo que sí se espera es que se abra la conversación, que la gente pueda cambiar esa perspectiva que tienen del periodismo en México, porque el presidente ha estigmatizado mucho al periodismo.
So the president has attacked journalists, and citizens sometimes do not believe journalists, so he would like this to change.
Si bien el presidente, como se ve en el documental, se dirige a ese tipo de periodismo, no somos los que estamos en la calle, nosotros no somos los que estamos a cuadro en las grandes televisoras, nosotros hacemos reporteo de calle, yo hago más reporteo de montaña, de las cuestiones de movimientos sociales.
So I'm not a journalist that is in front of a TV, right? Like I am a journalist that is in the ground, in the mountains, and is going to gather those stories. So I'm not the type of journalist that the president is mentioning.
Y como cada cambio de gobierno, el próximo gobierno que entra en octubre tiene, inclusive el presidente tiene un mes para poder cambiar la Constitución porque tiene mayoría calificada en el Congreso.
So now it's the same party of the president and the Congress. So the president will have 1 month to actually make changes of the Constitution very fast.
Y el diálogo debe estar orientado hacia modificar las leyes en beneficio de los derechos humanos y en beneficio de la protección a los periodistas.
So I would like to see him having an impact on human rights laws, and that he will benefit, people working on these areas.
Y algo muy importante, y en razón de que estemos aquí también, es alzar la voz, de sumar más voces. La comunidad internacional debe exigir a sus gobiernos que cuestionen al gobierno de México para que se brinde esa información que nosotros le llamamos la cifra negra, porque hay muchos periodistas que no están en esa lista.
And what he would like to invite the international community to do is to question the Mexican government about what is happening, because the names that you see there is not the complete list of people that have been attacked or murdered.
Y en México el efecto que esperemos que cause este trabajo documental es que la sociedad en su conjunto abrace el periodismo, porque sin la sociedad estamos completamente solos.
And to Mexicans, he would like to invite them to trust, to embrace journalism, because he says without society, journalists are alone.
Y es que el periodismo en México es un pilar de otros derechos que también están siendo socavados, que están siendo vulnerados, y la gente está perdiendo la confianza en sus instituciones y en los medios de comunicación, que son una herramienta para la misma sociedad.
And so in Mexico, institutions are being affected and corrupted, and journalism is very important and is key for these institutions to keep working, like accountability issues.
Thank you, Jesus. And when we think about this topic, like we have heard a lot about the story of journalists being killed. We hear the story about impunity. And you have the challenge of presenting this story in a different way, probably, to capture the attention of the audience. Because we think, well, we keep seeing also parts of in the documentary of people saying, well, another journalists have been killed. So how we go away from the number of journalists and go back to the stories, and why should we care about this problem, and bring back the attention to a topic that people have been talking about for so many years, and say this has gotten worse, and we actually need to take it, to care, it's like people otherwise, some people say, we're alone. How couldn't we say how we bring back everyone so that journalists are not alone anymore?
Well, exactly. The bet of the documentary is that it's as human as possible. No, we wanted to do a documentary on journalists, but not with a journalistic approach. Because in the end, we're not journalists, we're filmmakers, and we weren't going to beat them in their own turf. No, I believe in the power of building bridges to connecting human stories as humanly as possible. And in this case, the characters, not the persons, but the characters were journalists, and if our responsibility was exactly like to make people connect with a human behind the pen, behind the camera, behind the laptop. And if that happened, if we understood the solitude that they were facing, and if we admired and were inspired by the resilience that they have, then the job of the documentary is done, because you're not going to go out and march or protest or demand to your local government for a change if you think a journalist is this cold figure that knows everything and just writes it and it appears on their Twitter feed or in a news outlet. No, it's if you understand that they're a person just as you are, and that when things happen and you're running away from those, they're running in the opposite direction to letting you know what happened, what's happening, what's going to happen, and we need those figures in our society, in our everyday lives. And I mean, I always say that it's on a personal level, the fact that Jesus, Mari, Juan de Dios, Marcos are so brave, I really respect that. But I don't think we should have a specific jobs for which you need to be brave and you need to be that level of courage, you know, like, because they don't ask that for a dentist. No, you can have like a regular life and not have these fears carried on your own body if you do other jobs, and that makes you do your job better. So we shouldn't put journalists on that level of demand, because only the bravest and the most courageous and the ones that do the biggest sacrifices, those are the people that are going to inform us. No, I think we should care and we should provide the circumstances so that they have a job and the life that it's a life of a journalist. No, it's not going to be the same as other professions, but I think it was also important not to glorify them and make them heroes that you cannot reach, but to show that they're humans, as everyone is, and that they face these challenges.
Yeah, and talking about challenges, Jesus, you were mentioning, I think in the document, like I was curious, how many journalists are there at the moment working as journalists in your community?
En Periodistas Desplazados es una organización que auxilia en mi región, a lo mucho seremos 4 periodistas, pero solo yo estoy en Tetela del Volcán y municipios aledaños. O sea,
so you're the only journalist basically working in your neighborhood.
Es correcto.
And then, how do you do it? Like so, and how is your connection with your community? And what kind of protection do you get even from the community as you're reporting on stories that are relevant for them? Sí, y si hay algún tipo de protección que la comunidad te da.
Ok, en la comunidad en la que yo vivo es la misma, ahí sí está ocurriendo el fenómeno de que la sociedad en sí misma abraza al periodismo, porque ellos son quienes me llaman y ellos son quienes me protegen cuando hay problemas, y ha habido ocasiones en que me han pasado el dato de algún peligro al que yo no.
So in his community, because he's hyper-local, he does feel the support of the community, and sometimes community members will tell him that, oh, there is this danger, be careful with that. So in his own community, he does feel that society supports him.
Y hemos creado una red de un tejido social más sólido que en otras comunidades, porque afortunadamente la radio comunitaria no lo hace por dinero. Lo hacemos por una obligación moral, porque ya es hacer periodismo en México ya es un acto de resistencia.
So he worked with radio, with community radio, and he says that community radio is not for profit or for other interests. It's more for the own good of the community, and right now is more of like a resistance act.
Y más allá de tener este temor a seguir haciendo periodismo en mi región, yo lo que he hecho es expandirme más allá de mi estado a través de las redes solidarias de apoyo para poder sacar la información de mi comunidad. Ya no, si algo grave ocurre, como en este momento está ocurriendo el inicio de una guerra por agua, ya se abarca a otros estados como aledaños, como Puebla, pero llevamos la información también a la Ciudad de México, donde los medios de comunicación tienen un mayor alcance.
So now with his network, he's working with other journalists from states that are close by. Like right now he says that water scarcity is a big issue. So he's working with journalists from other states, and he's outside, but he's, you know, touching the issue from his community, but also with like a larger scope and with other journalists also reporting on that, and that helps.
Y una herramienta muy importante son las redes sociales, porque antes nos limitábamos a estar en la radio, en FM y en un periódico impreso que se distribuía en la comunidad. Y a partir de hace unos años, que será del atentado para acá, hemos fortalecido nuestro trabajo en las redes sociales y eso ha tenido un mayor alcance.
So before he used to only have his investigations or his articles in traditional media, but after he had that threats, now he also works in social media, uses internet, right? And so that helps spread the word more.
Yeah, no, and thank you very much, Jesus. And like, as he's the only journalist in his neighborhood, if he's not there, how would the neighborhood know what is going on in the neighborhood? What are the problems of the local neighborhood? What are the issues and how they can sort it out, no?
And in Jesus' case, it's not only the community that's been informed by him, he's touching this very specific place where the water is being, the people are being misled so that water is privatized, and that source of water is a source of water for Mexico City. So if Jesus is not there, I cannot read about water scarcity that's going to immediately hit my own water scarcity. So it's about understanding that, like, this chain of how the news travel, because Jesus is going to report it in his own sphere, but that is going to be taken by a bigger newspaper in Mexico City, and that's going to spread it across the country. So just as how the information travels, the same water or the scarcity of it travels all the way back to everyone. So it's important that we appreciate that if there's not someone right there, then access to water.
Basic. Exactly. Basically, we wouldn't know, and that's something we're seeing this situation in Mexico. We're seeing this spread around the world too. Like, we're seeing, like, in some cases with other journalists killed due to different circumstances. We have war zones where actually also we have journalists being killed, silenced. Other cases where organized crime is targeting journalists. Other cases where journalists are being targeted through lawsuits and trying to silence journalists. And the cost is for society. The cost is then we can't be informed, we can't know the stories. And then the problem that we see here in Mexico is echoed also in other parts of the world. Same the problem with exile. We have more journalists in exile than ever before. And that is as a consequence of pressure, lawsuits, and risks that journalists are taking. And that is captured here. And we see journalists covering migration that afterwards become migrants themselves and then take the risk to come back to keep telling these stories. So what do we need to do to be able to fight silence? No, and journalists are bringing these voices, are investigating, helping shine, and bring light to this situation. We have some minutes left, and I don't want to only be us talking, because we are sure that maybe you might have a question out of this. I'm just impressed by the documentary, and of course as a journalist too, I appreciate all the work that you, Jesus, and other colleagues are doing to tell those stories in your communities, to like bring transparency. And of course, Santiago, we are in immense step to like for you to pick the topic of journalists and highlighting these stories. But do you have any questions to Santiago and Jesus?
Maybe raise your hand and we can.
Yes, Gustavo.
Yes. Maybe 2 or 3 questions if there are more.
Yes, we can take the questions and then we can address them. And we still appreciate that you're here. There will be a party afterwards and we will all go together. But this is, of course, very serious. And we love that you're here until the end.
Okay. Hola, Jesus. Un gusto. I'm going to ask in English. And then, okay. So I saw you talk a lot about your relationship with the mountain. You talk about the water sources and the mining issue in your region. And I would like you I would like to ask you to tell more about what is the risk to report about the environment in your region. We know there's like defenders that are being threatened, not only journalists. So I would like you to tell more how risky it is to write about the conflict about water or extracting natural resources in your region.
If there is any other question, please raise your hand. Okay, there. So risk about reporting about environment in your region and natural resources and water. So the other question.
Yes, my name is Joseph. I'm from Brazil. I'm a judge and I fight against corruption in my country too. But I'd like to ask to Jesus in Spanish maybe. Me gustaría de saber de tú qué piensas acerca de la situación en Guatemala, en Honduras también, porque es muy parecida, ¿no? Porque yo pienso que la situación de los periodistas es solamente una consecuencia de un narcoestado que hay establecido en tu país. Lo mismo acontece ahora mismo en Brasil, porque nós temos organizaciones criminosas que están solapando todo el Estado. Entonces, me gustaría de saber de usted acerca de las medidas que han tomado en Honduras, porque tenemos muchas críticas también acerca de la opción que fue hecha por el presidente Bukele, ¿no? Entonces, me gustaría de saber de tu opinión sobre eso.
Any other final question? Okay, one here in the front, and then we will go to address those 3 questions. Oh, we have 4 questions. Okay.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Jesús, Santiago, Emilia, muchísimas gracias. Bueno, antes que nada quiero agradecer por el documental, por la película, porque evidencia la situación de los periodistas, no solamente en México, sino en todo lugar del mundo. Soy Mónica Velázquez, periodista de investigación de Ecuador. Investigo crimen organizado, narcotráfico, también corrupción política, que bueno, en mi país ya es un narcoestado lastimosamente. Y nosotros como periodistas hemos recibido muchas amenazas, e incluso hay un documento firmado por la misma policía que nos hacía seguimiento a nosotros y a nuestra familia y daban, o sea, ahí recomendaciones en qué lugar asesinarnos. Entonces mi pregunta es, ¿cómo manejan esta situación de miedo y seguir en un país a pesar de las amenazas, seguir trabajando?
Okay, how to handle, for the ones who don't speak Spanish, while we get a microphone, how to handle fear. So Monica works in Ecuador, and she was talking about the threats they have faced, and she was asking Jesus how they handle fear when you're receiving threats and where someone is targeting you and basically telling you could be killed by us. So that's mainly the question. Yeah. One last question, and then we will go through.
La situación de México me da pena como ningún otro país en el mundo, también Rusia, también Afganistán, porque normalmente hay un espacio para esperanza. Y me gustaría saber cuando cierre sus ojos en su mente, ¿dónde está el espacio para la esperanza? Por un país herido como México.
Yeah, and then this is where is it, like he likes to talk about hope, and I think it's a beautiful question to end. So because he's asking also, well, if you close your eyes, where is the space for hope in a context like the Mexican one? So I think we can start. So I remind we have 4 questions. One about the risk, like journal in your area for like when journalists are reporting on environmental issues. Then the other one about narco states and the situation in Guatemala and Honduras. Then how you handle fear. And the last one, how we remain hopeful.
Sí. Bien, el periodista que hizo la pregunta sobre los riesgos que se corren al estar investigando los temas ambientales, el riesgo no solo es para los periodistas, sino también para los mismos campesinos, para los mismos activistas. Samir Flores, quien aparece, yo lo grabé en una asamblea popular, y él nada tiene que hacer en Tetela, pero sí está correlacionado mi comunidad con su comunidad, porque yo hablo de un megaproyecto en el documental y el megaproyecto abarca todo el estado para una termoeléctrica que se está construyendo en Huesca, o ya se terminó, pero necesitaban agua, y Samir Flores defendía su comunidad del gasoducto que usarían para calentar el agua que viene de mi comunidad. Entonces es todo integral, y el miedo…
Yes, so I was just asking to make sure. So he says that it's like the problem is not only for journalists, but it's systematic. And in the case that he reported for his documentary, he saw that local people, ¿cómo se dice campesino? Like
farmers.
Yeah, like farmers were also in big threats because they were standing, and especially Samir Flores, who he filmed, was standing against a big thermoelectric plant, that took water from his community, right? So he sees it as a system. It's not only journalists that are being threatened, but it's like other members of the community, activists, farmers, everyone who speaks up, right, about the injustice.
Algo que sí se debe mencionar es que en México existe el mecanismo de protección y va relacionada con cómo lo hacemos para manejar el miedo, porque el mecanismo de protección, si bien ha tenido sus fallas, yo creo que ha funcionado con aquellos que seguimos vivos, porque nos han extraído de nuestra comunidad y nos han colocado en una situación que para ellos es más segura, aunque haya muchos efectos colaterales con la familia, con el trabajo y pues con la desinformación en la que se queda y la desprotección también para aquellos defensores que también son extraídos de su vivienda, de su zona de influencia, y el 70% de los beneficiarios del mecanismo de protección del Estado son defensores de derechos humanos que están en su mayoría pues, en la Ciudad de México y algunos dispersos, pero el 30% somos periodistas.
So in the documentary you see the protection mechanism that is highly criticized, but he's saying that there are a lot of things to improve, but that one thing that worked for him is that has kept him alive, because he was extracted from his community to a bigger city, and that his family was also taken to the capital of the country, and that really helped him to keep him and his family alive, even if that doesn't solve many other problems, right, related to that, but at least it worked on that. But then he said that for that mechanism, 70% of the beneficiaries are human rights activists, or just activists in general, and 30% are journalists.
Y en nuestra región, los periodistas ambientales también están siendo perseguidos judicialmente, inclusive hay un patrón. Primero viene la advertencia, inclusive la advertencia